The reason why breathing is such an important tool in things like meditation and overcoming anxiety states is because breathing is one of our primary autonomous body physical responses, in as much as we all breathe most of the time entirely automatically. We don't think breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and less still do we think breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause, breathe in. And many people, without understanding the importance of the structured breathing and the biofeedback that it has with your synaptic mapping, they can completely miss the point of meditation and exactly what is being achieved through the act of meditation. And that simple act to take a full breath in and pause, and consciously pause. I mean, personally, I draw a breath and then hold it consciously until I'm slightly uncomfortable, and then try to breathe out with a controlled out breath, thinking the whole way through the breath, trying to make the breath as even and as smooth and as consistent as possible. On the out breath, I try to breathe out, get to the point where I think my lungs feel empty now, and then know that there will still be a reserve in there, and try to expel that reserve as well, so my lungs are fully emptied, and then pause. And trust me, that pause needs to be a conscious decision, because when you've emptied your lungs completely, your body suddenly goes into almost like a panic state. It's a very emotional sensation. I mean, I suppose it's associated with drowning or suffocation. But essentially the holding of the fully expelled out breath and the holding of the pause consciously, just slightly beyond what one is comfortable with, and then again the applied, controlled drawing in of breath, not the sudden gasp of the dying man. You're not dying, you've only paused for 2 or 3 seconds, your body's okay. You know what I mean? This is the conscious application of intention, of the conscious mind over the autonomous physical body. And the reason why this is so powerful in meditation, the reason why meditation is so curative, is that this reinforcing of the mind over the physical is a very important thing when we're suffering from illness, when we're suffering from disability, when we're suffering from mental health or emotional health problems. It's very easy to feel victim to our bodies, to feel a casual observer in the events of our lives. And this simple act of controlling one's breath to such a degree where the body is convinced that there's something bad happening, but you with your conscious mind know that you are imposing that sensation and are embracing it and are using it and are able to resist the urge to descend into breathless panting and gasping for that perceived lack. And trust me, 5 or 6 breaths is all you need of that very powerful breathing technique to take you out of a very chronic anxiety state. Not mean if you're going into a panic attack, if you're going into an anxiety state, do 5 or 6 full breaths, as full as you can possibly do, fully empty, fully full, controlled. Don't push it till you're gasping, there's no point in that. It's all about control, and you will find that if you can force that intellectual command over your lungs, the response from your mind-body junction will be one of reinforcing your intellectual control over the uncontrollable physical world. And it's an incredibly curative, powerful tool. And as an anxiotic going into the professional video industry when I was still untreated as it were, uncorrected anxiolytic, I would find myself in the most incredibly high pressure work situation where the focus of everybody's eye is upon you in the room, which is never a bloody comfortable place for me. I like to sit in the shadows at the back of me. And your performance is, is everybody, is everybody's experience, is your performance in that moment. And I would often, if things started to go wrong, if my mixer blew up, if something terrible happened, I would find that simply by sitting and forcing myself not to react to the situation at all, but simply to sit and take 3 or 4, if I can spare the time, 5, 6 or 7, preferably not enough to make yourself feel a bit dizzy, because you're obviously at work, I don't want you passing out. But within that 3 to 5 breaths, you'll suddenly feel a releasing within yourself, an undoing of that tension, and with that undoing of the tension, you'll probably actually find that the solution to the situation that you're immediately presented with will come unbidden into your head. But after Mrs. is always bloody telling me, just put it down and stop doing it for a bit, because I'm always doing, building fucking crappy old PCs and cobbling together bits of stereo, cobbling together old dodgy bits of motors, and everything's always on the ragged edge and kind of on its last legs and a bit kind of desperate hope. So as a result, I find myself in all sorts of scrapes and various things that I'm trying to fix or get to work. And we get our nose so pressed up against an issue, are so driven to resolve that issue, that we don't step away, we don't stop and take that moment to pause, that moment to breathe. And I, of all people, should know the importance of that, should know the power of that, because I make use of it in another scenario where I'm in a more professional role and acting a different character. And this is the other thing as well, is we do all have these personas. It's not just a single persona, it's a multiple persona. We are actors on the stage, We don't present the same self to our work colleagues as we do to our drinking buddies, as we do to our lovers, as we do to our pets, our children. All of these are different masks to present an acceptable face of the underlying self. I think sometimes we get confused between the complexities of some of those masks that we wear. And confusion of characters. Okay, so I think I'm going to go into synaptic remapping, having now done my best to explain the kind of theory. So back to the plot. Was there a plot? If there was, I must have lost it a long time ago. Synaptic remapping. So I've kind of basically outlined how us rational thinking, wonderful intellectual beings that we think we are actually largely automata in our daily lives, and that a mere fraction of all of our intellectual processes are actually really that intellectual. Most of them are simply control signals running on a repeated learnt program. So, essentially the cupboards are empty, that triggers a response to go to the bloody shops. You're thirsty, that triggers a response to go and fill the kettle. You're driving the car, a rising pitch from the engine triggers a response to dip the clutch and put it into another gear. All of these we do without actually thinking. We may think that we think about them, but if you actually observe yourself and the number of occasions that you'll find yourself to have been able to have done all of these things perfectly competently without having the slightest self-awareness of having done them. I'll give the example of driving back with my son from university recently and doing 90-something miles in the car without being slightly aware of even being in the car, let alone being the driver, doing in excess of 70 miles an hour for 90 miles in heavy traffic. So essentially we are these learnt muscle memory automata running subroutines like some insane robot largely, and that these subroutines are loaded, these programs are loaded into the miasmic neural network that makes up the brain and the central nervous system, and into the number of potential interconnectedness, the number of potentially interconnected points in the human brain through the synapses is inconceivable. I mean, I think there's something like 3 trillion synapses in the adult brain. If you can imagine that each one of those synapses could reference every other synapse via one or other of the synaptic pathways, then you have a computing capacity beyond any supercomputer that not only could we dream of, but that we could probably dream of dreaming of. Certainly nothing that we're going to build in the near future. This whole thing about, oh yeah, we're getting close to artificial intelligence. Are we feck? Not happening. Not even close. We're replicating small components of what would appear to be a reasoned response from what's essentially software subroutines, but it's nothing in comparison with the incredible complexity of the human brain allied to the human senses and the human central nervous system. Stick that up your cybernetic pipe and smoke it. So essentially we have the physical body and its interactions with the physical world mapped in this three-dimensional geometric lattice work of the brain's synapses, and that each of these pre-programmed responses will be held like a switchboard routing for a telephone call in an old-fashioned telephone exchange. It will be held in the synapses as a reinforced routing, and the way that the synapses achieve this is by increasing, engorging the size, the capacity, and therefore lowering the resistance of the flow of the synaptic responses to the between the synapses by basically putting in bigger and smaller pipes. So the more a synaptic route is used, the bigger a pipe it will be given to transmit that synaptic message more effectively, and a route that is used less frequently will be given a gradually smaller and smaller pipe. It's a bit like your front-side bus in the computer. It's a bit like having faster and slower front-side buses fitted to the parts of your internal computer that require greater or lesser computing capacity. Again, one has to remember that the brain is the most oxygen and blood-hungry organ in the body, and something like 2/3 of all of the blood throughput is there purely to deliver the fuel to drive this incredible organ of thought at the top of our bloody bodies. So we have this neural remapping where our physical actions are physically mapped, modelled by these synaptic telephone exchanges, and that these telephone exchanges prefer the networks that are used more often. So, a synaptic pathway that's used more often will be given more and more bandwidth, as it were. And so what we can see here is that